Thy rowers have brought thee into great waters. The east wind hath broken thee in the midst of the seas. Man, that is a seriously chilling, poetic, and frankly terrifying biblical warning straight out of the book of Ezekiel. I mean, just picture it for a second. You have this magnificent, perfectly crafted ship, totally loaded down with the most precious cargo in the world, and it's being deliberately steered away from safety, straight into a deadly, unforgiving storm.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? If your life is that ship, who exactly is holding the oars? Are you letting outside influences steer you into turbulent waters that you were literally never meant to navigate? It's a huge question. Who is truly piloting your life's ambitions right now?
Well, welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you with us today. We're going to dive really deep into the tragic historical account of the ancient city of Tyre, which is recorded in Ezekiel 27, and we're going to use this powerful source material to uncover a totally relevant modern survival guide for your spiritual life.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Ship of Perfect Beauty.
So to really understand the sheer magnitude of this tragedy, we've got to look at ancient Tyre. This wasn't just some run-of-the-mill city. It was this impregnable island fortress built with the absolute finest resources the ancient world had to offer. We're talking towering masts carved from the cedars of Lebanon, massive oars hewn from the mighty oaks of Bashan, and sails woven from the finest embroidered Egyptian linen. I mean, they even built their benches out of ivory brought from Chittim and traded in emeralds, purple, and coral. Visually and economically, Tyre was an absolute powerhouse that was heavily blessed with divine provision.
But Tyre harbored a fatal flaw. I am of perfect beauty. That is what the city arrogantly declared about itself in Ezekiel 27:3. They suffered from this incredibly dangerous self-deception, actually believing their beauty and success were entirely self-generated. They just completely forgot that their borders, their builders, and all that crazy wealth were provisions from God. And you know, when we get all lifted up in our own self-worth like that, we actually weaken ourselves, making ourselves super susceptible to disaster.
Which brings us right to Section 2, steered into great waters.
Because Tyre bought into its own hype, it refused to stay safely within God's established borders. And here's the crazy part. The real danger didn't actually come from the ship itself, but from the rowers. In Ezekiel's metaphor, these rowers were the false leaders, the foreign influencers, and the flatterers who lured the city out into the rough waters of the world. By leaning on human admiration instead of God, they let these supposed opportunities row them way beyond their ancient landmark borders. And out there in the deep waters, the east wind just broke them.
All right, moving on to Section 3, the fall of Rome, and how this acts as a prophetic metaphor.
This whole historical shipwreck actually serves as a massive prophetic metaphor. Theologian John Gill points out this brilliant connection, mapping how the historical trajectory of Rome perfectly mirrors the tragedy of Tyre. In its early days, the church at Rome sat in a really good position, graced with God's blessings. But then came the drift. Just like Tyre, Rome was steered by rowers, human influence, paganism, and worldly ambition, and these things just drew them out into the deep seas of the world, until they ultimately morphed into the great harlot on the seas mentioned in Revelation 17. It's a really stark warning about what happens when a blessed entity starts inching toward the world. Let's bring this closer to home in Section 4, Beware Your Modern Rowers. So what does this actually mean for you today? Well, think about the whole modern concept of a glow-up, a massive transformation in appearance, confidence, or success. The cultural pressure today is intense. It constantly urges you to upgrade yourself and seek perfection through your own grind. But listen, here's the warning. Don't lose yourself in your glow-up. Just like Tyre deceived itself, it's so easy to forget that our beauty is not perfect on its own. We are merely being perfected by God, who gives beauty for ashes. Don't lose out with God just as you're starting to progress.
Now, what's really interesting is how perfectly this ancient metaphor maps onto your life right now. You are the city of Tyre. The rowers? Well, they aren't literal sailors, obviously. They're the flatterers in your life, your endless ambitions, and the societal pressures just constantly pushing you to achieve more. And those great seas? That is the unforgiving world. If you let people row you into positions that you just cannot handle spiritually, the world will eventually break you, exactly the same way the tempest broke Tyre.
We are constantly faced with a choice. The worldly urge demands movement just for movement's sake, this nonstop need to move up and look successful to everyone else. But spiritual wisdom, that requires seeking God-directed change in His timing. Don't just constantly seek movement to satisfy human ambition.
Be content with godliness and allow God to move you to that next position when you are actually ready for it.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 5, anchoring your spiritual life.
Okay, so how do we practically stop our ship from drifting? Thankfully, the Biblical Survival Guide gives us 3 absolutely crucial defense mechanisms. Build on the rock, put on the armor, and be content with where God places you. Let's break down exactly how these function as your anchor.
Step 1 is being founded upon a rock, pointing straight back to Matthew 7. Our source material emphasizes that your builders have to be God and His Word, not human flatterers. If you build your ship upon the solid rock of hearing and doing God's sayings, then when the rain descends and the floods come, you will not fall. But if you try to stand firm only on your own flesh and human influence, you're just building on sand. And let me tell you, great will be your fall.
Step 2 is all about preparation. You have got to put on the full armor of God from Ephesians 6. We aren't just fighting physical storms here, we are wrestling against spiritual principalities. You need the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of the gospel of peace, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, and the shield of faith. You need the whole shebang to withstand the deceptive pull of those worldly waters when the rowers try to tempt you out of your depth.
And finally, step 3, let God move your ship. Honestly, this is the ultimate takeaway from the whole tragedy of Tyre. God does sometimes allow even His church to go through tribulation, but the source notes assure us that if we just remain in God, He will bring us safely to the other side. When God decides it's time for a new position for His child, He is fully capable of moving the ship Himself. You do not need to rely on the world's rowers.
So I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought today. Are you letting the world row you into deep waters, or are you waiting for God to move your ship? Please, don't let your own ambition or the flattery of others push you beyond the safety of God's borders. Anchor yourself deeply in the Word and trust the ultimate pilot to navigate your journey. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring these ancient texts. They literally have so much to teach us today. Catch you next time.